the sustainability we talked about the 3 legs of the stool. And so you've already identified that social sustainability is probably the most difficult one to figure our fingers on. We seem to be living in a market, in a political economy that's been driving, wealth distributions to be more and more unequal. And it seems like we can do a lot of talking without actually addressing that exact issue. And I was just wondering what your thoughts are.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, I mean, I think the interesting thing to me is that when you start to take that approach, and by the way, the big conclusion of the Stiglitz-Sen report, from which this figure comes, is that it's not GDP growth itself that's the problem. It's rising inequality that's the problem. And that's why the focus on the ratio between France, where inequality has not really increased much over the past 20 years, and the United States, where inequality has increased exponentially. So I think that there is, even amongst sort of the mainstream political leaders and economic leaders, there is some kind of growing recognition that inequality is a big part of the problem. But I think that in moving to the next stage in terms of, okay, what do we do about it? All of a sudden, in order to approach that question from a sort of a practical and an effective way, you need to invite a whole different community of people into the conversation. Right? Because, well, what are economists going to say, especially conservative economists going to say about redistribution of resources? My answer would be that the most fruitful approaches to look for would be those where you're actually getting the sustainability advocates who are coming from the economic side of the equation to sit down at the table with sort of members of the social justice movement in order to start to talk about how we could come to some kind of understanding that it's a common problem.
You have one more.
This is a
different. Sorry.
This is a thing that we're here talking. We assume, I just always hear this kind of intrinsic assumption. Oftentimes people talk about sustainability, that the corporations are a problem, the government's a problem.
Speak up, please, so others can hear.
Oh, sorry. So the assumption that the government is the problem, the corporations are a problem, but the people all want this. We're not voting for the Green Party. Stephenson did not do very well with the environmental. And when you look at personal habits, there's not much change there either. So this kind of idea, that there's a utopia in the waiting because all the people really want this and people in our ways, like the corporations or the government, seems to me like, I wonder sometimes, if we take the other argument, because you bring up a lot of these, what about the problem with the fact that people don't care? People don't care.
Yeah. People don't care as much as they say they do. And in fact, so the latest sort of research that was conducted by Infrastructure Canada in 2007, I think, showed that Canadians, by and large, thought that environment and sustainability were one of the most important challenges facing the nation, and that one of the best ways to address it was to increase living density, right? So to increase the density of our communities. But when asked, whether they were personally interested in taking part in that, they said no, right? Absolutely not. So this is it's a paradox.
I think maybe you had one more question in the front row.
Sarah.
Oh, yes. Following up on what you were saying before about needing to get people with, sustainability people, talking to people working on social justice issues. It occurs to me that, I don't know, I guess I've been involved in union activism, environmental activism, more peripherally than I'd like to be, but still. And it seems to me there's a lot of that kind of conversation happening on the streets, at the sort of on the ground activism level, but somehow it's not making its way upward to sort of the big guys in the suits who go to these international sustainability conferences. Somehow that the understand you're at that level. There's this divide between the economists and the sustainability management types and the social justice thinkers. And I guess I'm struck by how that there at the grassroots level there is that understanding that unsustainability and inequality go together. But somehow that's not making its way up the ladder. And my sort of intuition is that that's related to what the woman over there said about, you know, people having this sort of someone else ought to do it attitude. You know, sort of, well, it's a big problem, but it's not my problem. Let the government do it. Let someone else do it. The lack of sort of personal engagement somehow. And I'm wondering if you can sort of speak to what you think that block is.
Yeah. Well, there's clearly a difference between the kind of work we do when we're trying to mobilize for change in our communities and the kind of work we do when we're trying to communicate a message about change to leaders, right, to national leaders. And I would say that the social justice and environmental and labor union movements, well, the labor union it's a little bit better, but generally sort of grassroots movements are not particularly good at communicating their message to leaders, right, in language that leaders sort of like to hear. And it even probably turns their stomach to think about taking that on as a challenge a lot of the time. One example that kind of strikes me is that, how did climate change go from something that was a really radical idea when I was an undergrad and something that, that crazy white-haired professor talked about, but nobody else cared to something that today is part of, greenhouse gas reductions is part of the policy standard now across the developed world. And I would point to not Al Gore so much as the Stern report that came out of the UK that explicitly put a dollar value to the level of damage that was going to be inflicted upon us and inflicted upon the UKs, but in the world as a whole by the results of climate change. And I think that we probably need to, that we need to think about the language that makes sense to different groups of people if we're trying to communicate across groups.
Let me draw this part of the gathering to a close. Meg said she wanted to stimulate some discussion, and I'm sure it will continue later. I know the scope of the questions asked and the discussion has blown my mind. That may not be a big challenge, given that I was one of those crazy white-haired professors. So please join in thanking me for her presentation.
And I'd just like to thank you all once again for taking the time to join us here at this university at this time for this conversation, and we can continue it on the periphery of the grounds of this university over the next hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, how many bottles of wine do we have?